Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Dick Gregory.
Hey, we'd like to say thank you very much. And I had a little difficulties getting here in town because when I found out that we had to fly over the state of Indiana to get here, and I figured with Governor Wallace making such a strong showing in Indiana, the only way I'd fly over that state's in a U-2 plane. No, I figured Governor Wallace might get a couple of votes in Indiana, but I didn't feel he'd get that many. How'd that song go? I used to be glad to be out in the land of cotton, but Wallace proved Indiana's just as rotten. Look away. Yeah, and a lot of people in Wisconsin and Indiana, they're pretty embarrassed, too. That's probably the first time the white tornado ever hit a place and left it dirty. Because in Wisconsin and Indiana, I thought at one time they had voting machines with the curtains on it, but I see it must be sheets. And you know, the beautiful thing about reading about Wallace, I was on the plane when I read about how many votes Wallace collected in Indiana. But the same day and in the same paper, of course smaller, on page 14, there was an article that said 3 Negroes won elections in Alabama for the first time. So while Wallace was up north raising Cain, we taking over his state. And when Wallace made such a strong showing in Indiana and Wisconsin, it's really a reflection on the North, because you see, the Southerners right there in Alabama, they wouldn't vote for Wallace for anything but governor. Oh, you voted for him to be president. No, the people in Alabama, they never wanted him to be president because they know he's so uninformed on everything else but bigotry. Oh, yes, Wallace was being interviewed not too long ago, and one of the newsmen said, Governor, if you were elected president, what would you do about Vietnam? He said, Viet who? Wallace is so informed, if he was elected president, he would probably get Bobby Baker and make him treasurer. And I understand the Pope was planning on coming over to talk to Wallace to see if he could kind of cool him down a little bit, but some of the Pope's top advisors suggested the Pope shouldn't come over here and talk to Governor Wallace because they felt when Wallace first sees that cross around the Pope's neck, he might try to light it. So you see, we all have problems. I've been so upset lately ever since I looked at that Huntley-Brinkley report where they showed Tanganyika, and I've been kind of digging Tanganyika for a while until I found out on the Huntley-Brinkley report that Tanganyika supplies half the world's rope. Now, it's bad enough for 100 years getting lynched, let's alone find out one day your cousin's supplying the rope. You know? Because I was coming through Chicago the other day and I talked to Jimmy Hoffa. And Jimmy Hoffa, he didn't have to tell me he's having it rough and think he's going to lose that trial, because when he picked up the phone, he was singing "We Shall Overcome." So I tried to inform Hoffa that if he really wanted to beat all those raps, what he ought to do is demonstrate. Yeah, wouldn't that be a wild scene, Jimmy Hoffa walking down the street with 20 million trucks behind him? I can just see the headlines in the morning paper: police dog killed while trying to bite bulldozer. But you see, we all have problems. I'll be honest, I've been extra happy lately because not too long ago my wife gave birth to 2 twin daughters, And a lot of people wonder why I take her to jail with me. But you know, it's a strange feeling to leave home one morning with 2 girls and come back that evening with 4. It's sort of like you're trying to raise your own Girl Scout troop. And I'm still getting letters of congratulations. Matter of fact, Governor Wallace sent me a telegram and accused me of trying to grow my own race. And you know, the hardest thing about twins, especially in my shape, was trying to find names for them. You see, I was born and raised on one side of the track, poor, hungry, never had anything. My wife was born and raised on the other side of the track. Everything she ever wanted, she had. So the names that I heard on my side of the track, she haven't heard on her side of the track. And the names she heard on her side of the track, I haven't heard on my side of the track. So she named my 2 twin girls Pamela and Paula. And I told her those are 2 cute, rich names, but I might cool off. And I have one daughter she named Lynn and another daughter she named Michelle. So about 2 weeks ago, I put my foot down and I told her, the next baby we have, I'm going to name something colored. Like Beulah. Yeah, that name just slays me. Beulah. Yeah, I don't care what the baby is, boy or girl, I'm gonna name it Beulah. If it's a boy, it's gonna be Beulah John. If it's a girl, it's gonna be Beulah May. But then I'll have something around the house I can play with. Because let's face it, I'm not used to those names, Pamela and Paula. What do you do with them? Pamela, if you do that again, I'm gonna tell your mother on you. Paula, if you don't behave, your mother's gonna spank you. Michelle, mommy gonna punish you. Beulah girl, I'll bust the hell out you. I mean, you just have so much fun with Beulah. I mean, look, Pamela and Paula, they got a special maid, they have special doctors, they have special vitamins. Michelle have to go to a special private school. Lynn have to take ballet lessons. Beulah, he grew up by herself. Michelle don't come home one night, I got to go to the chief of police and ask him to look for the missing person bureau, hire my own private detectives, report it to the FBI. If Beulah don't show up, just open up the window and scream for her. Beulah! Somebody gonna answer you. So you see, we have problems. You have problems, I have problems. I have a very touchy problem that I'm dealing with lately. There's a cigarette here. You see, when that cigarette report came out, I stopped smoking just like that, but I'm still buying them. Ain't that weird? I know a lot of people, man, try to stop. They can't stop. I can stop, but I have to buy them. And it's not funny. It's embarrassing. I tried to break the buy habit. I even walk out the house with no money and end up stealing them. Have you ever heard of anyone that's hooked on buying cigarettes? Ain't that weird? All my life, I've been hung up on something. When I was 4 years old, I had a peanut butter habit. When I was 15, I had a Kool-Aid habit. And it was so embarrassing, when I was 25 years old, I had a Jell-O habit. And when I couldn't get it, I just lay in the gutter and shake. And now I'm 31 years old and I'm hooked on buying cigarettes. And you know, when that cigarette report came out, you know what to me, all they were trying to say, all they were really trying to say is, out of all the cigarettes you can smoke in America, marijuana's the safest. No, you know, and the cigarette industry's been pretty frightened since that cancer scare came out. I mean, do you know Raleigh's is not going to have the coupon on the back anymore? Blue Cross Blue Shield credit card. And you know, if you really want to have a lot of fun and really want to bug the cigarette industry, you ever see those Marlboro signs? Get you one of those Marlboro signs and find you a cemetery and take that Marlboro sign out to the cemetery and hang that Marlboro sign right on the cemetery gate, and it'll read, "This is Marlboro country." Because to be honest with you, I was kind of hoping that the cigarette report had came out about 6 months earlier, when I had to get my mother-in-law a birthday present. That's right, I would have bought her a carton of cigarettes instead of that case of tuna. No, you see, I have a mother-in-law that kind of really hates me, and I know it. You see, you can always, my mother-in-law's deeply religious, and you can always tell when deeply religious folks hate you because they always threaten you with him. That's all she tells me. She points up and says, "He gonna get you." Good Friday, when they had the big earthquake, I called her up and said, "Hey, baby, miss me again." No, really, you know, I guess I really shouldn't be talking about my mother-in-law. She's in the hospital. My Valentine's Day gift bitter. Now, do you realize how difficult it is to send all the way to India to get a black widow spider with rabies that work? But you know what frightens me? A lot of people say, "Greg, why did you quit smoking?" They say, "You have to die from something." Well, I hope so. I hate the thought of dying from nothing. Probably wouldn't even get no insurance money. What did he die from? Nothing. Don't pay him. No, it was more of a thought-provoking thing that made me quit smoking cigarettes. No, I'll admit you have to die from something. I'm not afraid of death. But I wouldn't let a man give me cancer. I'll be darned if I'm going to go out and buy it. And pay state and federal tax for it. And this is what frightens me. You know, when that cigarette report came out, some of the top research minds in the world, after 25 years of research, said definitely that cigarettes cause cancer. Nobody quit smoking but a square like me. And this is a reflection on how you think. Let me show you how you think. You know, had that report read a different way, the cigarette company would have been out of business in the morning. Had that report not read, "Cigarettes cause cancer," had that report read, "Smoking cigarettes will make you healthy, but you'll turn jet black," the tobacco company would have been out of business. Even Nat King Cole would have quit. Company would have definitely been out of business. Now, can you believe we living in a world today that we think this way? That we don't give a hoot about catching cancer, but to be black, we don't want no part of it? Let me show you how you think. And then this is why we can't solve no world problems, because we don't think. You ever see that Ajax commercial? Say, "Buy Ajax, keep the rust out the entire house," and you rush out and buy some Ajax, and it gets the rust out the entire house, but you better not leave that Ajax can on that kitchen sink overnight. When you pick it up there, that round circle rusty spot in. You don't think. If you ever wake up one day and start thinking, there's going to be a lot of people in trouble. Do you realize out of your tax money, they spend millions and millions of dollars each year for civil defense buildings, and do you know they closed on weekends? So this is frightening, the way you think. And if you ever wake up one day and just start thinking, I had the occasion to think a couple of weeks ago, oh no, you never think 24 hours a day, man. People say you stupid. Yeah, they'll call you a little funny thing. Say, he a Muslim. Yeah, I had a cat tell me, say, you a Muslim. And you know, it's so amazing. After the Cassius Clay fight, the guy was interviewing me. He said, were you surprised when Cassius Clay announced he was a black Muslim? I said, I was surprised when he announced he was a Muslim. We knew about the rest of it. But you know, I couldn't understand why so many people were afraid of the Muslims. Every time I pick up the white newspapers, they talked about the Muslims. And there's not one Negro in America that know more Negroes than I know. I go from one end of the country to the other sometime in a day and a half. And I've never met a Negro today and come back and he say he's a black Muslim. So I wondered, why do people build the Muslims up to be so strong? So I decided to find out. I gave myself the Muslim test. No, you know, Muslims are not allowed to eat pork. So if you want to test the strength of the Muslims, give yourself the Muslim test. I laid off of pork for 2 weeks. I said, now I know if the Muslims are strong, I'll find a lot of restaurants that have non-pork menus. I like to starve to death. Go in a restaurant one morning and try to order something without pork, eggs and what? So I still couldn't convince myself because every time I read the newspapers, it said the Muslims this, the Muslims that. And then one day it dawned on me why everyone in America is so afraid of the Muslims. Because you can't recognize one. What do a Muslim look like? Is it the maid? Is it the cook? Is it the babysitter? That's why so many white folks come to Negroes and say, what y'all gonna do about the Muslims? We can't recognize a Muslim neither. So now when people come to me and ask me about the Muslims, I tell them that when you couldn't recognize the communists in America, you never came to a Negro. You went to the FBI and the CIA. So now if you're worried about the Muslims, go to the FBI and the CIA and let them join the Muslims. Of course, they have to be colored. And you know, everyone was so upset when they say the Muslims want to fight. Do you know anything about the Muslim religion? The Muslims can't smoke, can't drink, can't go to nightclubs, can't mess around, whatever that means. No, it's in their bylaws. I read it. I don't know what it means, but I wouldn't join nothing that I couldn't mess around with. They can't eat pork and they can't live in white neighborhoods. And you surprised about the fight? Well, just think or not. Just imagine you're a Muslim. Can't smoke, can't drink, can't go to nightclubs, can't mess around, can't eat pork, can't live in white neighborhoods. Ain't nothing else left to do but fight. Yeah, I wonder what the Muslims give up for Lent. So, you know, really, like I said, I had occasion to think a couple of weeks ago, the Internal Revenue came by my house and knocked on my door. Blam, blam, blam. I opened the door and said, who is it? They said, Internal Revenue. I said, what do you want? They said, you cheated us. I said, I know it. Yeah, they wasn't ready for that. Caught them completely off guard. They said, you don't mean it. I said, yes, when I got in trouble, I did like most honest Americans do. I cheated on my income tax. And you see, they were in a very embarrassing position because they've been trailing me and following me and checking up on my income tax for 4 years. And this one guy alone had spent $40,000 on his expense account watching me. And when I say I cheated you and admit it, that makes him trouble with the downtown office because he spent $40,000 and it lead them to believe downtown that had he asked me the first year, I would have told him. So now these two Internal Revenue agents are standing in my front door trying to get me to deny that I knew I cheated. And they said if I did, they would drop half the charges. I said, you caught me cheating, do your job. They wouldn't even arrest me. I had to take a cab down there. And when I walked in, they'd already called the Internal Revenue Office. I walked in, the guy said, Mr. Gregory? I said, yes. I said, we don't want you this year. I said, I'm turning myself in like a good citizen. I made a citizen's arrest. I cheated on my income tax, and you're going to do something about it. So he was kind of nervous. He says, well, look, just a minute. Then in walks the district Internal Revenue Inspector. Oh, you're really in trouble then, because he's a foreigner. Yeah, he's just been in this country 6 months, and he hates anybody that's cheating this good thing. He looked at me and he says, you cheated us. I say, cheated us? Man, are you out of... And just when I got ready to get violent and really upset that whole Internal Revenue Office, they ran the colored cat in on me with the badge. He's winking and blinking and said, hey, brother, don't mess up my job. Oh, if you really wanted to have some fun, you should have been with me when I moved into that all-white neighborhood. You know who showed up the first day on my porch? The Negro delegation. Telling me about how I'm supposed to act. This one Negro, Dr. Jones, he says, you got to be careful out here in this neighborhood and be cool because they're watching us. I said, what y'all doing, stealing or something? Say, no, you know what we mean. They're gonna look for you to depreciate some property. I said, buddy, they just charged me $75,000 for a $12,000 house. I'll depreciate this whole block if they make it. And Dr. Jones walked up, he says, you act like you're gonna try to be difficult. You know what we're talking about. What we're trying to say is for you to keep your lawn mowed and plant something out here. And I planted watermelons and cucumbers, turnip green, carrot, spinach, sweet potato. And boy, when them watermelons start growing, my colored neighbors quit talking to me. Yeah, white folks came by every day. Hello, Mr. Gray, can we have a melon? Go ahead and take it. And what really upset me is when Dr. Jones' wife slipped up to me and said, be sure and tell your wife with these 4 kids you got that you're out here in this all-white neighborhood, and when they go outside and play, she just can't open up no window and scream for them like you used to do in that Negro neighborhood. I said, oh, no, I got them all walkie-talkies. Then the spokesman for the group said, and something else we got to remind you, you can't whoop your wife no more in this white neighborhood. I said, oh, I'm glad you said in this white neighborhood. I thought you meant I can't whoop her. He said, well, you can't. I said, no, buddy, anytime she make me mad, I'm gonna put her in my car, take her back to that old Negro neighborhood, and beat the hell out of her. And bring her back here and tell my white neighbor she got robbed. So you see, we have problems. I was in New York City for the stall-in. Got there early that morning and was walking through Harlem, and right next to a filling station, cat walked up to me and said, hey, baby, can you loan me 3 pennies? I want to buy some gas. I'm driving to the World's Fair. Yeah, one cat pulled into the filling station and looked at the attendant and said, empty me up. And I went out to the World's Fair with Co and all of them. I was planning on going to jail if I had to until I found out I had to pay $2 to get in. I don't mind going to jail, but I'll be darned if I'm gonna pay for it. And at the fair, you know, the attendance was down so low on opening day of the fair, they had big signs out in front of the World's Fair that say, welcome picketers. So you see, we all have problems. You have problems, I have problems, Rockefeller has problems. Now when you stop and think, Rockefeller was the front runner till he got that divorce, and a lot of top Republicans put him down for it. No, I don't go along with that. I feel if a man's going to run for that #1 office in the land, if he's having problems at home, straighten him out first. That could have been a heck of a thing. Old Rocky could have kept that quiet, moved into the White House, then got a divorce. She might have got custody of this country. I had a newsman interviewing me not too long ago. He said, Gregory, who do you think going to win the president's election in November? I have no doubt in my mind that Lyndon Johnson going to win. Johnson and I, we're pretty good friends. Right after he took the office, he called me about a week after he was president. He said, hey, Greg, how am I doing? I said, well, Lyndon, said, we was a little worried about you at first, but you made such a heck of a stand for civil rights, 20 million of us and unpacked. Lyndon Johnson had mentioned the word civil rights so much, I'm thinking about sending the Ku Klux Klan a sympathy card. No, I mean, Johnson and I chat every now and then. He called me once and he says, Greg, I sold that wheat to Khrushchev. You think I did right? And I explained to him, I said, well, Mr. President, I don't want to voice my opinion about world's affairs, especially when I have a gripe against Khrushchev. No, see, Khrushchev bugged me talking about he gonna bury us. And if I had my way, I would mail Khrushchev 3 wheat seeds and tell him, bury this and try to grow you a crop next year. Because now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against selling food to the Russians. I'd sell them all the tuna fish and cranberry sauce so I can get my... What's wrong with that? They sell it to you. Because I think Lyndon Johnson made a big mistake when he said anyone that's seriously thinking about running as a serious contender for president of the United States, he'd like to invite him to Washington and talk over some top secret intelligence information with him. And I understand that Khrushchev is trying to get into Maryland primary. No, I talked to Lyndon Johnson not too long ago, and I explained to him that if he want to save all the American taxpayers some money, the first thing he ought to do is get rid of that hotline. That telephone communication that's supposed to serve as a pressure point. In case someone accidentally hit the missile button, they can call one another and explain it. I bet. You know, if a married man can't even call his own wife and explain to her he's coming home late for dinner, how in the world are you going to explain 4 missiles on your enemy? No, really, what would you say on that telephone? Hello, Khrushchev? Johnson, baby. Yeah, we sorry about Moscow. No, really, what would you say on the phone? Hello, Johnson, Khrushchev. Hey, get everybody over there in Blue Cross Blue Shield, because in a few minutes y'all gonna hear a hell of a lot of noise. So you see, we all have problems. Now, have you noticed the funny things you can read in the newspaper? I read an article in the newspaper not too long ago where it said the dean of Clemson College said they will admit any student to Clemson College as long as they can meet the entrance requirement, be they black, white, or green. Now, I dig the heck out of integration, but I'll be darned if I'm going to send my kids to school with the Jolly Giant. No, I mean, there's just so many funny things you can read in the newspaper. Like when I first read in the paper last year where it said the Pope decided to go to Israel, first thing I thought about is that Sammy Davis Jr. really started something. You know, I didn't believe the Pope was going to Israel. That was a dangerous move. And I still wouldn't have believed it had I not seen that TV special. Showed the Pope he was in Israel and in Jordan. And he was scared, too. Yeah, the first time I ever seen the Pope blessing people with his fingers crossed. You know something? You know, the day the Pope decided to go to Israel, my cousin, who's a Baptist preacher in St. Louis, he decided to go. Matter of fact, he got to the Holy Land the same day the Pope got. Matter of fact, he was walking right next to the Pope when the guards grabbed my cousin and searched him and found that half pint of alcohol and tried to embarrass my cousin. They said, what do you mean walking in the Holy Land this close to the Pope with alcohol on you? And cuz says, not alcohol, it's holy water. And the guards opened it up and tasted it and smelled it and said, what do you mean holy water? Taste this, this is alcohol. And cuz said, what do you know, another miracle. Because I was very happy when I read in the paper where the Pope decided to meet with the patriarch. They hadn't talked to each other in 900 years. I couldn't stay mad at Alabama that long. Of course, you know, no one actually knows what the Pope and the Patriarch talked about. But I can just imagine when the Patriarch got back to Constantinople, he probably got all his top advisors together in the meeting room, pulled down the windows, let down the shade, locked the door, and said, "What's bingo?" So you see, we have problems. But we don't have to worry. 24 hours a day we worry about this or worry about that. Because to be honest with you, I'm so darn glad to be out of jail for a change. No, you never live till you see one of those southern jails. Barbed wire fence, on top of the barbed wire, broken glass. Outside the barbed wire fence, the electric fence. Outside the electric fence, the big brick wall. Guards roaming around the brick wall. Double-barrel shotguns, machine guns, and outside the brick wall are man-eating dogs. And with all of that, I can still get in them. Yeah, I just had a trial down in Atlanta, Georgia, not too long ago. Boy, let me tell you, that trial I had in Atlanta, Georgia, that judiciary department down there is second to none. Khrushchev could have sit in that courtroom during my trial and went back to Russia and made communism work. You know, I'll say one thing about the judges in Atlanta. They not formal, they not stiff and wear the black gown. They don't beat on the desk with the gavel and holler order in the court. They just light they cross and you know court's in session. That's why it was so amusing after the Jack Ruby trial in Dallas when his attorney, Belli, said, "I'm going to appeal the case, and if I don't win it, I'm going to quit my practice." Belli should go with me to my next trial in Mississippi. He commits suicide in the courtroom. Yeah, I had a heck of a trial in Birmingham, Alabama. Never will forget that trial. Judge gave me 180 days in jail for parading without a permit. Don't that grab you? I tried to explain to the jury, I said, I'm not with them, I just dig parades, you know. Well, now, don't get me wrong, I didn't mind that all-white jewelry, it was those sheets. And then the judge said, "Young man, you don't know how lucky you are." He said, "Do you realize 11 out of the 12 on the jewelry are moderates?" You know what a southern moderate is? That's a cat will lynch you from a low tree. Then the judge told me, he said, "I'm not giving you these 180 days because you're a Negro." He said, "I just hate comedians." I bet. So naturally, I posted an appeal bond. Not that I would ever mind doing 180 days for the cause, but it's a cold day in Birmingham. One of them southern judges gonna give me 180 days in jail and just gave Martin Luther King 5 and he started it. And do you realize King could have broke that whole mess up in Birmingham in 3 days' time? Remember, they caught King, put him in jail on Good Friday morning. When they checked that cell block Easter Sunday, he should have been gone. But he was still sitting there singing them freedom songs. So naturally, after I put my bond money up and the judge knew he couldn't put me in jail, that's when he threatened me. He said, "If I ever catch you in Birmingham, Alabama again, I'm going to give you 30 days in the electric chair." And he meant that. I can just see it now. How do you plead, AC or DC? Yeah, he think he hurt me by keeping me out of Birmingham? Who needs it? Birmingham, a nice place to demonstrate. I wouldn't want to live there. Because every time I've been arrested, it hasn't been for demonstrating. I got arrested in Washington, D.C. for driving drunk. And I was drunk, too. Matter of fact, I was so drunk, I was up on the sidewalk with my top back, and I wasn't in a convertible. Because don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about the getting arrested. It's the cop's attitude I didn't like. No, you see, I'm not one of these guys, anytime the cops grab me, I holler, "You doing this just because I'm colored." Although sometime it'll work. But it was definitely the police's attitude. Cop pulled up next to my car and said, "Pull over, boy." I said, "Let me stop first, you." I stopped my car. Lieutenant jumped out of his car, rushed up to my car. I said, "What do you mean driving downtown Washington, D.C. drunk, boy?" I said, "I'm not drunk, Lieutenant." I said, "You lie, boy, you're drunk." I said, "I guess I must be drunk to let you talk to me like this. I haven't hurt you yet." Oh, that made him mad. He grabbed his nightstick and got ready to hit me with it, and I looked at him. I said, "Lieutenant, wouldn't you be in a heck of a lot of trouble if you hit me with that nightstick here in Washington, D.C., then found out I'm an African?" And at that point, he didn't know what I was. No, he didn't know whether to call me Mr. Diplomat or one of them things. So he sent back to the squad car and got one of them sergeants out that's supposed to be able to recognize us. Oh yeah, every police station had one of them. Call them us recognize. Sergeant walked over to my car, had a mouthful of snuff. I said, "Hey baby, don't drip none of that snuff in my seat covers." He said, "Boy, I'll take this nightstick and bust your head open." I said, "Darn, Sergeant, you sound colored." He looked at me and said, "Shh." You see, what a lot of people don't know is can't nobody recognize us like us. So meanwhile, the lieutenant runs around, jumps in my car, tells me drive to the police station. I told him I'm not running no limousine service. So meanwhile, they pull me out of my car, put me in the police car. On the way downtown, they search me, grab my wallet, find me NAACP card, Corps, Urban League, SNCC, a couple of them other groups. By that time, they know I'm not going to take a balloon test because they can see I have the Supreme Court on my side. And you know, I hate to refer to them as Supreme Court. They're more like our alternate sponsors. Which is rightfully so when you stop and think about it. The guys in the white sheets took our rights away and let the nine in the black give them back to us. Meanwhile, knowing that I'm not going to take a balloon test, they stopped the police car right in the middle of the street, pulled me out, walked me to a street corner. The lieutenant said, "Let me smell your breath." I said, "I'm not." He said, "You know it's going to go pretty hard on you in the morning when the judge finds out you didn't let us smell your breath." I didn't believe him. Sure enough, first thing the judge told me, he said, "Mr. Gregory, I can understand you not taking a balloon test." The old judge was an alcoholic himself. He said, "But when that good lieutenant has to smell your breath and you deny him this admission, that's an open admission you have alcohol on your breath." I said, "No, sir, Your Honor, I wouldn't mind the police smelling my breath inside the police station, but they wanted to smell my breath right out there on that street corner." Judge said, "Well, what's wrong with that?" And I told him, "Hell, I got too many friends walking that street corner to be able to explain what he's doing that close to my mouth." No, I mean, let's face it, hard enough being colored. Let's alone get that rap going. So you see, we all have problems. But this is the era today of what we call the new Negro. Ivy League suit, short haircut, Brill cream, 2 dabs, but it's Brill cream. Now we're making progress. 20 years ago, the light-complected Negro had it made. Today it's the dark-complected Negro. Simply because of government contracts. In order for big business to get good government contracts today, they have to hire Negro and white on an equal basis. So they go out and get the blackest cat they can find. So when that government inspector walk in that plant, he can see him 7 blocks away. "So you got one, you darn right, we had one." Oh yeah, we doing all right. At the rate they hiring us today, 5 years from now, it won't be enough for us to go around. Yeah, it won't be nothing. Drive down the street one day and see a big sign, "Hertz rent a Negro." So you see, we all have problems. But I don't know why we worry so much. Everyone's worrying about Cuba, worrying about Castro. You don't have to worry about Cuba. But you realize if Castro makes a mistake and hits this country here, we're going to get a lot of outside help. You realize about 6 days before Ben Gurion resigned, he sent a telegram to Castro and told him any invasion on Miami Beach would be considered an invasion on Israel? And he meant that. Because a lot of people's not aware that Ben Gurion was forced into resigning. You see, the Israeli government want to sit that country up with two premiers, one Jewish and one Gentile, in case they have to go to war on Friday night, somebody can push them buttons. Heck, I know that, and I'm Baptist. And when I say Baptist, I mean Baptist the hard way. You see, I was the only Baptist kid being brought up in an all-Catholic neighborhood. And those little Catholic kids used to harass the hell out of me every morning on my way to school. Never will forget one morning on my way to school, little Catholic kid walked up to me and said, "Come here, Baptist." I've been called worse. I walked up to him and said, "Yeah, what do you want?" He grabbed me in my collar. He said, "My God's smarter than your God. My God's smarter than your God." I said, "Hell, he ought to. You tell him every darn thing." Because I was very happy when I read in the paper where the Catholics have okayed the use of the vernacular. I just hope my Baptist church picks it up. Sure would make sermons easy on the ear. Yeah, instead of saying "dearly beloved," just walk out, look over the congregation and say "cats." Cool it, baby, that take the place of amen. Hey, and wouldn't the marriage ceremony be wild? Instead of saying "and now I pronounce you man and wife," just say "go and sin no more."